Awesome. Welcome, everybody. There's another person. Very good. Very good. Welcome to our very first wealth workshop. So there's not like multiple in a series, but plan on doing this every couple of months. So I'm glad you guys were able to hop on. Probably have a few more people hopping on the next couple of minutes, but basically the goal of this next 45 minutes or hour is to sort of dive into some of the fundamentals of what it looks like to build long-term wealth. So this is not some catchy sales pitch. Annalie, who just hopped on, asked me earlier if I'm trying to sell you a timeshare. I am not. This is largely about just kind of looking at what you're doing with your money and being intentional with where it's going. So it's sort of a hybrid of some like Dave Ramsey like type principles, as well as some other stuff kind of mixed in together in order to kind of reshape how we're looking at our money and hopefully set us up for, set each of us up for long-term wealth. So have a little slideshow here. I'm gonna pop that on. Let's see here, how do I do this? Cool, 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 great. That's the slideshow, no one can see it. Okay, sure. Okay. Okay, are you seeing this in full size?
Yes.
Wonderful. Well, very good. Welcome again. Courtney was so kind to create a slideshow with a picture of me at the beginning. So thank you for that, Courtney. Three things we're gonna go over today: learning how to master your personal family budget, gaining tools to manage your money, and then seeing where you're spending and how much you're saving to actually begin to see improvement in your financial health. So I was on, so a little bit of my personal story. I was a Dave Ramsey person for many, many years. I took some of the stuff actually back in high school, like 15, 18 years ago. Kind of had some of those principles of like budgeting and setting things up very strategically for many years. My wife and I took it right when we got married, and we were on the envelope system, budgeting, like all of that to a T for many, many years. So probably 7 years, and kind of that system, it transformed our life. Like we don't really argue about money at any point anymore because we're sort of in a flow. The last like 2-3 years, we haven't done as much of like the actual like monthly budget because we've kind of just gotten into a flow of like understanding where our money's going most months and just making sure we're living within our means. So this program, call it a program, that sounds cheesy. It's not really a program. This like way of looking at it is similar to that with like some extra bonus stuff that actually adds some intention behind it. So the thing I was seeing with Dave Ramsey, I think the area he kind of falls short is when you actually look at the long-term strategy and how you get to the end goal. So Angie, you have done Dave Ramsey a lot, which I'm excited you're here, Scott and Angie, who are not on camera. But basically correct me if I'm wrong, there's about 7 steps of building wealth. Much of it is just being really intentional with saving a certain amount and then paying off all of your debts, including your home, and beginning to invest over time. Is that a fair summary of that?
Totally. Yep.
Sweet. So that's good. I think on a base level, a lot of those things are good. So I would by no means say that's bad. I think there's some extra things that can be added on that make it a little more intentional than just, I think the Ramsey method leaves it a little bit unintentional on the back end of cool. Now we have some savings, now what? So I'll kind of show you how this thing we have is a little bit different. If anyone does not know what Dave Ramsey is, it doesn't matter. It's not going to affect anything else over the next 45 minutes. Okay, so this is something that some very wealthy people put together, myself not being one of them, but I have kind of rebranded it. This is basically steps to building a really solid financial future. So looking historically, what we've seen over the last 20 years or so with the real estate market, the stock market, all these different things, these are some principles that are meant to be your foundation for building wealth in order to set you up for long-term success. So the very first thing is your home is somewhere you live. It's also an investment. So one of the things that can happen is people can overspend on their home and become what's known as house poor. So statistically, having a primary real estate mortgage that's about 3 to 5 times what you make in Washington is usually a healthy number. When you start to get over that, I've seen people that are buying homes with mortgages about 8 times what they make. You're getting really thin on some of your margins there. So 3 to 5 times is kind of that comfort level of what your mortgage should look like. That being said, that's one of the reasons why Spokane is becoming such a tough place for housing, because our average income in Spokane is about $57,000, and the average home just crossed over the $400,000 mark. So even for an average family, hitting that 3 to 5 times can be very difficult. So that is absolutely the goal and something that I would recommend. When you get outside of that, you need to be very cautious and be even tighter on all of your numbers to make sure that you have some of these other things in place before doing that. So you want to have a primary generally before you ever do some sort of secondary or investment property. Sometimes people buy investment property right out of the gate. That can be fine. But kind of that rental or secondary property is generally sort of an offshoot of what you already have. Some of the equity that's built up, that's not necessarily going to fall in any sort of income percentage as long as you're actually able to make some money on it. So that's sort of one of those building blocks, but it's kind of separated by a line there because it's sort of like a bonus thing that is a part of the whole housing scheme of your wealth. So the second part of your wealth is just having a safety net. So we're going to talk through some numbers in just a second, but historically we've seen about $25,000 in liquid reserves. And you owning a home, the $25,000 is generally enough to cover most major things that can go on in your life. Not always, there are things that come up, but if your roof suddenly gets blown off in a windstorm and your insurance won't cover it, $25,000 is enough to start to make a change in your life. So then you're not like putting everything on a credit card. So 25,000 is often about 3 months of household expenses. So that's kind of where that number comes from. And it's just a good safety net if something's to happen. So those are the two things to kind of start with. Having some reserves prior to buying a home is very important. But then you'd have, a 85 step-by-step plan. So it's kind of broken up into 4 blocks. So the third block is if you have any sort of work accounts, or if you're able to do a Roth IRA, those things are either tax deferred or tax exempt, depending on which one it is. Those are going to be the best ways to building retirement savings. If it's a company match or something like that, obviously you're getting free money by doing that. So if you're able to get free money from your employer, that you should definitely do that. Like that always makes sense. Or a Roth IRA is tax exempt because you put in post-tax money into it and it grows. So you're able to pull it out at 65 tax-free. So those are huge. Those should generally be divvied up into about 3 different mutual funds. If you're in 45 different funds, you're probably not really it's probably not that effective. So having a small amount of those things that really you can be aware of what's happening. And if, let's say you have a big overseas account and Russia starts to invade Ukraine, you may want to pull money out of that and put it into another one. You can move them around with your financial planner. So that's something that you just be aware of what's happening in the world and in the market to make good decisions. And then finally, once all those are done, that's when you can actually start kind of investing in like other type, just non-retirement accounts. So the most basic way to do that is to do 7 things. So pick 5 stocks. So just any old stock, pick some stocks you like. Generally you want to pick kind of more blue chip style stocks. So something that has a good history of returns and not dumping it all into cryptocurrency, but kind of diversifying among 5, Coke, Home Depot, Walmart, Costco, Nike, Lululemon, like pick some bigger name companies. Then do a big chunk of it into the S&P 500 or some similar index fund, and then the rest of it into like a big chunk mutual fund. So generally your S&P and your big mutual fund should hold about 70% of that, and your 5 stocks should be about 30% of that. So if you have $10,000, divvy it up into a few different things. That's going to add some safety and stability, but then also give you the opportunity, if you think that you're smarter than the market, to pick stocks that you think are going to be growing over time. So again, don't do that until you have the other things handled. If you don't have the liquid reserves, you should not be putting money into the stock market to try and grow it, because you don't know that that's going to happen. Any questions on this so far? Wonderful. I can't see everyone, so if anyone has a question, just speak up. All right, so we're gonna do trivia. This is fascinating. So what percentage of Americans live paycheck to paycheck?
70.
That's close. A little lower than that. 61%. What percent of the workforce have no pension? So pension's like some sort of like set retirement.
95%.
That's what I thought. It's actually 50%. Apparently a lot of people have pensions. Thank you, James, for participating. I appreciate that. When Social Security was first created, the average life expectancy was 62. Anyone have an idea what an average life expectancy is now?
78.
86.
In the 80s, 62% of 52, 62? I think it's 62. That's what mine says. 62% of Americans retire on less than how much per year for their income?
30,000.
Less than that.
24.
Less than that.
Holy Moses.
$10,000 per year. 62% of Americans retire on less than $10,000 per year income. That's insane. So my hope is that you will absolutely not be part of the 62%. Because yeah, that's tough living. That's why so many people work all the way up until they die, which I think that's great if you want to work. But I think having to work when you're in your 70s is probably not the best thing a lot of times. What percentage of Americans always or sometimes worry about money?
85%.
Pretty close, 72%. And what percent of Americans fear that they aren't saving enough money for retirement, but very few are willing to do something about
All of
80.
them.
it? My guess would be all of them, 55%. That's a lot. And I would guess if, people were honest, more than 55% fear that, they're just probably don't think about it a whole lot. Or they're part of the 62% that think they're doing great and they're actually not. Okay, important facts. This is fun. Who thinks they're super good at math? No one. Wonderful. Okay, if you put $100 per month in investments at an average of 10% return, how much we have by the age of 65 if you start at 45. So you get $100 a month, starting at 45 till 60. So 20 years, $100 a month at a 10% annual return. How much money do you think that's going to be?
Around 300,000?
Close, 71,000.
Oh, not close.
If you start at 35, how much is that? It's more because it's longer.
250.
206. 250 was actually my guess. How about if you start at 25?
1.2 million.
I wish. 555,000. So $100 a month for 40 years becomes $500,000. So that's $1,200 a year. James, I love the hat.
Thank you.
So here's something also crazy. If you put $100 per month in investments for your children from when they're 0 to 18, how much is that going to be? So $1,200 a year for your kids in the same accounts. I'll tell it to you, 57,000. And from 8 to 18, they will have just shy of 20, so $19,986. So basically the importance of that. So if you're putting in $100 a month for 10 years, that's $12,000 you've put in. It is worth 19 by the end of that. So you've gained $7,000 just by doing it.
Minus inflation.
Minus inflation, which you're losing that one way or another. So over 40 years, you're what, 12,000 times 4 is 48,000. So you've put in 48,000. It is worth 555 for the 25-year one. That's crazy. This one's a lot of fun. So if you do that same thing, 0 to 18, they have $57,000 and you stop funding it at 18, how much will it be worth at retirement? $3.7 million. So if you're doing $100 a month for your kids for 18 years, they will graduate, or they will retire with over $3.5 million in the bank, having never contributed themselves. That's craziness. If it's the 8 to 18, so they have $19,000 in there. At retirement, they'll have 1.3 million. So that extra 8 years adds $2.4 million to their retirement. That's crazy. So this is generally how life should be split up. So the goal is always 20% of your income should be saved. So this form, I'm going to kind of walk you through. The actual intention behind it is to be aware of your savings and aware of your wealth rather than just cut back on your spending. So what some psychologists have begun to find is that when you actually have a goal, most people are going to pursue that goal rather than just try and cut back on other things. So I think for me personally, that's where Dave Ramsey got a little rough for me, was all we're doing is cutting back and I don't see why, other than cool, now I am saving some money and it's sitting in an account. So this form we're going to look at basically is really intentional with, here's how you're building wealth with your money that you're saving. And for me, that makes me switch, and my mindset switches to, I want to save because I want to see that growth. Does that kind of make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So it's starting with a different end in mind rather than just how do I cut back and live on less. The living on less comes as a result of being intentional with what you're trying to do with your money, which I'll explain all that better in a minute. So 22% of your money is going to go to taxes. Congratulations, welcome to America. 48% of your money should be what you're spending on your bills. 10% I'm not going in a circle. I should do that, but whatever. 10% of your money should be given away. And then 20% of your money, again, that's kind of the goal of all this, is be intentional with your saving and your investing as a result of that. Scott and Angie, do you have any revealing thoughts from a Ramsey perspective on this?
No, I just think if you're generous, life goes really well. If you're generous, you can't go wrong being generous. Rich
Mhm.
people that don't even believe are extremely generous are very high integrity. So yeah, it's great. Yeah. You
Mhm.
can't go wrong giving away money. You know,
Mhm.
you don't want to be foolish about it, but you cannot give God. He's very generous and it'll actually makes you have more money. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, absolutely. Every time I've had hesitancy about giving, and do it anyway, God takes care of me. So I've had, tons of experience where that's happened. Nothing crazy
a
like
side
checks in the
note.
mail or whatever, but things do happen.
Just a
Yes.
side note, there's a really good book on that called The Go Giver. And anyways, yeah, it's a really good book about exactly what he said. It's like,
Mhm.
you know, givers you become wealthy when you give.
Yeah, well, that's a great book. Yep,
Okay.
good recommendation.
Okay.
Yep, big fan of that
Yeah.
one. Sweet. Okay, so 6 steps to financial freedom. First of all, track everything. So it's super important. It's really hard and it takes time. So I'm going to walk you through how to do that, but often we fall into a couple different traps. One, some people track absolutely nothing and they just kind of hope there's money at the end of the month. And the reason I think most people do that is generally because they're afraid of what they're going to find. So the times I've had conversations with people about this and they say, I don't feel comfortable doing that. Often it's because they don't know where their money's going to go and they don't want to know because they're scared of what they're going to find out. The other side of it is people can focus so much on their money that every day that's what they're consumed with. And sometimes they're doing that tracking, but they're spending a ton of mental energy just consumed with what's going on. Often that's because they don't have that safety net in reserves, that 25,000 or whatever your 3 months reserve is going to be. And then kind of the third thing is some people just have so much stuff going on that they can't keep track of it. So multiple credit cards, multiple checking accounts. Josh, you run a business, like you probably have multiple different worlds of things. So I also have a business, so I have multiple accounts. I have rental properties. All those things have different accounts associated with them, but each one is its own thing. And I only really manage my business and my personal one. The other ones kind of just survive. And then with that, like credit cards, if you have 6 or 7 credit cards, you have to track all of those and be aware of what's happening. And something's going to get missed somewhere. So cutting it down to having like one credit card, one checking account with a savings account attached, making your life as simple as possible so you don't have to think through all of this every week. So that's the other goal, is like simplify it so then you can go and live your life and actually not have to worry about what's happening to yourself financially because you've planned it. Second thing, be consumer debt free. That's huge. So consumer debt is credit card. It can be like car payment. There can be tax reasons for having a car payment and things like that. So sometimes I think there can be justification for it. But for the most part, if there is a debt that is a weight on you, it should be taken away. So the biggest one is always credit card debt. The interest rate on that is just atrocious. It's 17 up to 27%. So that's the first thing. Take care of your credit card debt. Then figure out from there what you're going to do, whether it's paying down cars or student loans or whatever. Some of those things with lower interest, sometimes you want to be a little bit more intentional with what you're doing with those rather than just like quick hurry up and pay them off. But be intentional with your money, pay off the high interest rate stuff quickly. Dave Ramsey says pay off the smallest balance quickly. I think that's a fine way to do it if you have like 4 or 5 credit cards. But pay off that consumer debt as quickly as possible, because that is going to be a huge burden, and you should absolutely live on a bare minimum life until you have your credit cards paid off, because that will free up so much money if you're not going to be paying that interest on it. Third thing, build your survival account. So this is where you get that 3 times your monthly build, which is usually about that $25,000 amount. And then fourth, maximize your retirement savings. So Roth IRA, you can contribute to every month or every year. If you have a 401k, especially if there's a company match, that's huge. If you're self-employed, you can do a SEP. So if your work offers something like this, that's awesome. You should take advantage of that. If they don't, I would love to connect you with a financial planner who can kind of help you with some of those things. I have most of these things. So just through different stages of life, like having a job, just contributing to a Roth, now being self-employed, there's different things going on. So your life is going to shift, and you're going to have ebbs and flows of which thing you're going to be able to contribute to, but be aware of what you can contribute to and figure out a way to do it. After you have those other boxes checked, that's going to begin to build that freedom for you when you get to 65. So most of this stuff can't be touched until you're about 59 and a half for most of these retirement type accounts. So that's great. And for most people, that's like where your bread and butter is going to be, is put money in there and then let it grow over time. And just for remembering sake, we talked about $1,200 a year over 20 years becomes 71,000. A Roth allows you to contribute 5,500 or 55 or 6,500. I thought it was 65. We'll call it 55 though. 5,500. So if you're doing that over 20 years or 30 years, that's going to turn into multiple millions of dollars just by contributing to your Roth every year. Any questions so far? Is this like brand new information for anyone? Cool, very good. Okay. Next thing, investing in the market. This is where things start to get like a little looser and a little more like planning for not just your retirement, but planning to retire early, planning for your kids, for giving money to your children in the future, things like that. The retirement account is generally the thing that you're going to be using to help you and your spouse retire. So investing in the market on the side is generally one of those things that's going to move the needle one way or another on allowing it to be before that 59 and a half or having extra to pass on to your children. So investing can mean a bunch of different things. I would generally recommend talking to a financial planner. And you also, I think it's beneficial to be aware of it and doing some of it yourself. So what I have not been doing, but I am in the process of transferring everything over, is I'm going to hold 20% of my personal investments myself in my Robinhood account and like track that and buy and sell and do all of that myself. And then 80% of it, I'm going to send to my financial planner. So that allows me to be aware of what's happening in the market. If something is a good buy for one reason or another, or I have faith in a certain stock, I can invest in it myself without having a huge impact on my financial future, and then allow my financial planner to actually be the one to manage most of that because he is smarter and does this full time. So some of the things to invest in, a mutual fund has 20 different stocks. So there's a bunch of them out there. You can do some research. There's different types of mutual funds. Investing monthly historically has shown is the best way to make your retirement happen and make this extra kind of investing in the market happen. It's called dollar cost averaging because you're buying at different levels, high or low. And historically, the market sees between a 7 and 11% growth every year. So putting in every month, some will be higher, some will be lower, but over the course of the year, it's going to average out to usually being higher than it starts. And over the course of 2 or 5 or 10 years, it will historically always be higher, with occasionally a blip that shows up in the middle. So creating an account for your children, that's something, again, legacy type money that you can be aware of. And then there's other retirement or other kids education funds like a 529 plan that can help fund their college education. And then finally, I think, and Scott and AJ, I would love your feedback on this. This is the last step, is prepaying your mortgage after you've already started doing those other things. So the reason for that, currently interest rates are low. So interest rates have been hovering in the 3s for a couple of years. They're entering into the 4s now. And the return on retirement accounts is, again, like I mentioned, between 7 and 11%. Last year, we saw a 15% increase in the market. So a 15% increase is more than a 3% decrease on your debt. So generally, people who are these like uber wealthy people continue to have mortgages, even though they don't need them, because they have their money invested and working for them rather than just paying down their debt. How does this compare to the Dave Ramsey method?
Well, as far as the house thing goes, I mean, the interest rates are phenomenal right now, for sure. I mean, back in the day, when we bought this house, I think 4 or 5 was pretty good, but back in the early 90s, 8% was average, so the interest rates we're talking about now are really good. But when you get to the point where you'd want to look at a 15-year mortgage versus a 30-year mortgage, the cost is going to be $200 to $300 more a month. But the reason why we switched to a 15-year mortgage is because you save $98,000 over the life of our loan. So it's like, can you afford $300 more a month? If you can save $98,000 over the life of a loan, you can. When you're in a position. So yeah, I get the whole investing though too, as far as investing money. Like you said, if you're paying down 3%, but you're making 15% in the market. But there's something about not being in debt that's very freeing. It's very not knowing anybody anything is. It's very nice. That's all we have is a mortgage, but so we don't have any other payments. But like you said, once you free up all the other payments and stuff, you can really begin to build wealth pretty easily, pretty quickly, actually. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it's taking all things into consideration. If interest rates get up to 6% on your mortgage, at that point, I would absolutely say, yeah, start to pay down your mortgage, because even with the market going up more than that historically, having a higher interest rate on your mortgage can be a rough thing to kind of work around. So, but yeah, kind of for me, yeah. So $300 a month, worth 96. Like that's a huge savings. And then on the other side, like look at what that would do if it was just invested. Again, if someone is not investing into their like work retirement accounts, that's going to be your safety net to actually get to retirement. Investing in the market, if you're already doing your investing in your work retirement accounts, the investing in the market, that's something that, again, is kind of play money that, yeah, very likely or potentially prepaying your mortgage could have a greater effect. Again, depending on your life and your ability to manage all of these different assets and things like that. So that's a very like individual situation that you kind of look at what your strategy is. So so this is the form that we're going to go through. We're just going to kind of quickly breeze through a lot of this. If you would like a little more in-depth, I have some other videos and things I can send you. This is not a form that I created, but it's something that I've been doing for a handful of months. It looks very similar to just like a traditional like Dave Ramsey style budgeting form. Probably a little bit clunkier, actually. It's not nearly as pretty as theirs. But I'll show you there's some intention behind it that I think is really fascinating. So it's broken up into 4 columns. You may or may not be able to see it, but I'll read them to you. So the first column is just the name of the bills. The second column is the monthly amount owed. The third column is the monthly total paid. The fourth column is the amount that was saved. And the fifth column is your total paychecks or your total income. Then at the bottom, that is the part where you track your accounts, your net worth, and your balances. Again, because the goal is to be intentional with what you're doing rather than just let this thing called retirement sort of happen to you. So we'll get to that at the end.
Can you explain net worth?
I will, yes.
Okay.
Yep. Because yeah, so this, and that's one of the things I love about this form is it breaks it down into a bunch of things, which gets me really excited. I actually get to do my budget tonight and I can't wait. Like I literally wait until my profit and loss is done for the business. So then I can actually figure out how to do my personal budget every month because my income changes. And I'm stoked to do my budget tonight. Like I love it. So personal budget. So column 1 and 2, column 1 is just the name of your bills. So you have this in that email. If you want to pull it up, you can, or I'll just kind of give you the summary here, but you have access to this as well in an editable form. So the first thing, you can customize the form to match your life. So if you don't have a student loan payment, take that off. Like just do it how you want. Everything in 2, 3, 4, and 5 is going to auto sum at the bottom. So don't change anything that looks like it has a formula in it, but anything that looks like, cool, here's a name of something, you can change all of the names. So customize that how you want so that it's functional for you. If you have a balance on a mortgage, car, credit card, or student loans, that should go in column 1 to show you the balance. So then every month you can see that you're making progress on that. So yeah, so that again is part of that intentionality of cool, here's where we're at. The goal ultimately in a handful of years is to be at 0 on all of these things, and let's chip away at it every single month. The minimum amount owed, this is where it gets a little bit tricky. So the minimum amount owed is not always the minimum amount that's owed. So for those of you who do not function with a credit card that has a balance, you will not have a credit card line on here. So we use our credit cards as a rotating balance every month so we can get points and airline miles and trips and things like that. So we do not keep a balance, we pay it off every single month. So we don't have a line that says credit card because we pay it off every month. So instead we break everything down. And so if we have internet, cell phone, gas, electricity, things like that. We're living in 2022. You're probably going to pay for internet. Like that's technically something that you wouldn't have to pay for. But like, even if you lost your job, realistically, you probably need to get internet somehow so you can go reapply for new jobs. Like we live in the world of internet. So that's one of those things that, yes, if the world completely collapsed, you probably could cut it out. But like you got to get into real dire straits to take internet out of your life. So, so most of these minimum amount owed, I just use like a really practical, like, can I actually take this out of my life or not? So internet is going to be there. I'm going to pay for gas in my car. I'm going to pay for oil changes. I have to pay my HOA dues or they could put a lien on my house. Haircuts, I probably could cut my own hair if I really had to, but again, like some of those extra things, like going out to eat. My wife and I like going out every week and spending time together. We don't need to go to dinner. We can go to a park. So if we're going to go to a park, we're probably going to get like an ice cream sundae. So like necessity for eating out is probably like $20 a month. So do we spend more than that? Yes. But what do we have to spend? That's what's going to go in column 1. So we can keep some sort of flow to our life. Does that sort of make sense?
Yeah.
So,
And as far as budgeting goes, you got to be really honest with yourself. If you're going to spend $300 eating out, it's your budget. Do whatever you want. Put $300. You're going to eat out, you know. But I mean, the more honest you are with your budget, like how many kids do I have? How much do I spend on birthday presents? Oh my
Mhm.
gosh, Christmas came around on December 25th again this year. Are you serious?
Mhm.
Kids are going back to school. They need new clothes again this year. Be completely honest with your budget,
Mhm.
and the more honest you are, the more realistic it is, and the more practical it is, the more it'll work, But if you leave
Mhm.
stuff out, you're like, yeah, I got like $15 left and I can pay gas and groceries for the month, that's not really going to work, So the more honest you
Mhm.
are, realistic you are, and the more you
Yeah.
think about it, like think about things you only pay once a year, car insurance, or twice a year, or whatever, car
Mhm.
registration. You never think about it until it comes due, your Costco membership. Think about the things you only have to pay once a year too when you,
Mhm.
when you figure those into your budget, and the more honest you are with your budget and the more realistic, then it'll work. But if you're like, oh, I forgot that, and I forgot about
Mhm.
that, I didn't think about that, and I forgot about that, it's not going to work. So the more
Mhm.
realistic you are and the more number conscious you are about being realistic, it'll totally work. You just got to be really honest.
Yeah, yeah, it's good. And like ours, we've been doing this form specifically for I think 5 months now, and it changes a little bit every month. Like we'll forget something, we'll add it in. So the form that I sent you is a 12-month form that shows every single month. So we just copy and paste the name of the bills every month, and then if something changes, we add it in there. So it's easy to edit because occasionally we do forget about stuff. But yeah, being honest and being aware of that, and then yeah, I'll show you more in a second. So column 3 is what you actually spent. So the number that you have to spend compared to what you actually spend is almost always going to be different. So these don't have to balance. They probably will not. So as you can see in this example, the auto loan, this auto loan was paid. The credit card, they paid extra on the credit card. Cable and internet was more than they had expected. Cell phone was more than they expected. Dry cleaning was a little bit less. So your first one's going to be what you're expecting and planning on. That's usually going to be a pretty close reflection of what you had the month before. And then your second or your third column here, your actual amount paid is going to fluctuate quite a bit from month to month. So in a perfect world, this column 2 is not really going to change from month to month. It probably will in some ways, but a lot of that should stay the same. And then column 3 is the one that's actually what you did that month. We tracking so far? Wonderful.
Yep.
Okay, column 4. So this is where it gets kind of fun. So the amount saved. So if you are paying on your mortgage, you are saving money every month. If you have an appreciable asset that you are paying down or a debt that you are paying down, that counts as savings because it's money that you previously didn't have that you now do have. So this we'll talk about more in the net worth section in the bottom, but your net worth is all of your total money. If you sold everything, sold your car, sold your house, sold or cashed out all of your 401ks, cashed out your Roths, what do you have left for a dollar amount? Positive. And how much debt do you have left? So is that making sense so far? So all of everything you sell, everything, how much money do you have left is your net worth. So if it's a positive number, you have positive net worth. If you have more debt than you actually have equity. So let's say you sell your house. So your home is worth $300,000. You owe $200,000 on it. If you sold it, you would have $100,000 positive balance. Okay, you have a credit card that's $20,000. So you take away, so you're at 80. So that you have an $80,000 net worth. We're tracking with that so far.
Yeah,
I'm
so
gonna pretend.
do we just like guess on how much something's worth, like the car and the house?
So your car is probably not going to be factored into your net worth. It would be factored into your debt as a negative thing, but a car is generally not going to appreciate. So if you hold on to your car for 60 years, it's probably going to be worth nothing. So generally your car's or like your dining room table. Yes, those have some sort of value to them. But generally just count them as zero and then look at like your larger assets or your larger liabilities
Go way down.
when you're actually considering that, as well as whatever your retirement accounts are.
Go
So
way down.
I'll go into that a little bit more later, but for the purpose of column 4, the amount saved means anything that affects your net worth positively. So a credit card affects it negatively. If you pay money on a credit card, you are moving the needle towards the positive side. Okay, so it's not saved, but it's increasing your net worth because you have less liability.
Okay.
So it's called saved. So it kind of makes you feel good that you're like saving some money by paying off your debt. But also it's increasing your net worth because you have less liability. Are we tracking on that?
I think so.
Questions about that? This is the hardest column. The other one's very easy.
Another good example would be making your house payment, because
Mhm.
you're paying several $100s a month on the principal. So it's like basically it's a forced savings account. You're putting money, your savings money, because you're paying down your debt, and now
Mhm.
it's in a savings account. I mean, it's wrapped up in your house and it's not easy to get, but it's like every time you make a payment, you have more net, you have more equity, more, you're moving the needle in a positive direction. It's a forced savings account.
Yep.
And like
Yeah,
I said,
exactly. That's a great
When you
example.
pay down debt, you're getting closer to zero or to the positive, which is
Mhm.
a good thing. Yes.
Yeah. So this example I think is not very good. But so we can change that in future classes. But so for this example, the mortgage is $2135 and this person paid $3135. So they saved $1,000. That's actually, I'm not going to use that. I'm going to use this life insurance. So this is a whole life policy that's used in this example. I wouldn't recommend that. Talk to your financial planner, but I think it's probably a bad idea. But for a whole life policy, you pay a certain amount and some of that comes back to you in like this weird savings account thing. So they paid 500, that was the minimum. They actually paid the minimum amount and their savings is $400. Because that's what they actually saved out of that 500, like on the backside in their life insurance account. So same thing with your mortgage. So if your mortgage is, let's say $2,100 a month, you're at about 3% interest, and you've been paying on it for a year or two, you're probably going to save about $1,000 a month. So your mortgage payment would be $2,135, your total monthly paid would be $2,135, and your savings would be about $1,000 because you have equity that's going towards your equity in the home that you own. Okay, so that can be a little bit of an estimation, but ultimately it's decreasing the amount that you owe on your balance. Cool, I think we'll come back to this. Okay, finally, column 5, this is the easiest one. This is your income. So this is husband and wife. If you're just yourself, obviously it's just gonna be one. For a normal family where 2 people are working, all of your paychecks go in here and your net income is at the bottom. Good. Okay. Whoops. Okay, cool. We're going to talk about one more thing in just a second. So this is the bottom. This is the part that I'm going to come back to this actually. I'm going to do 5, this one, and I'm going to come back to that. Okay. So for the top portion, some of it is going to balance, some of it will not. So this took me a very long time to figure out. So your total paychecks on column 5 should always equal column 3, your monthly total paid. So if you have, in this example, made $18,000, your total amount paid every month should be $18,000. So some of that is paying credit cards off. They have money going into different accounts, so different savings accounts or retirement accounts. So those are monies being spent. So 3 and 5 should always be the same. 2 and 4 don't have to match anything. So 2 and 4 will not balance with 3 and 5, although you would think they should, but they won't. But 3 and 5 have to balance and be the same. So if you have more in 5 and less in 3, you need to be allocating some of that to be sent to a savings account. If you have more in 3 and less in 5, you need to cut back on your spending because you're spending more than you're making. So 3 and 5 should always be the same. 5 should be more, and you should be putting some into savings in column 3. Okay, so then at the bottom, here's how you track all of it. So this part is kind of fun. So the form looks like this. So the whole bottom section there is where you track month over month, what is your actual net worth doing? So some of these are easy. So your 401k balance, that's something you probably can get online or from your employer. That should just be updated every month. Part of that is you as a functioning person should be aware of what your employer is doing with your retirement money. So that's just a good thing to be aware of where your money is going. So you should know what those mutual funds are or those 401k accounts are. So then you can kind of track them and be aware. It's just good to kind of know what's happening. Not that you're necessarily going to change it or shift anything or do major life changes with that, but knowing where your money is going from a retirement standpoint is very important for your long-term financial health. Your mutual fund balance, again, just kind of retirement accounts, your stock balance, if you are, in Robinhood or E-Trade or whatever, those are gonna be like your kind of play money type accounts. How much equity do you have in your home? If you would like to know, please reach out. I'd be happy to provide that to you. But that's something that I update every 6 months for myself. So I update mine in January and in June or in July. So it doesn't need to get updated every month. It's not going to be 100% accurate anyway. So every 6 months, I kind of take a look at how much equity do I have and adjust that number. And then equity in rentals. Again, if you have rental properties, every 6 months, you'll update that number. So yes, if you pay down $1,000, you could increase this by $1,000 in a certain month. And that's really kind of the truest way to do it, because then you're showing that you're saving that money every single month. I have not been doing that because that's just it's just another balance to keep track of, and I just haven't done it. So I just look kind of the big number, and every 6 months I do like I'm 6 months later, here's what I owe, here's what it's worth. And then I fix it every 6 months for me personally. It's just a little bit easier. And then on the other side, so money market balance, this is your personal checking account. So your personal checking account should have about a month worth of your expenses in it. So if you have 2 weeks of your expenses in your personal account, you need to work on building that savings up. If you have 6 months in your personal checking account, sorry, did I say savings? I meant checking. If you have 6 months in your personal checking account, that's probably too much in your checking. And just checking does not earn you any interest or anything at all. So like that should be about a month. Your money market float, that's a fancy name for a savings account. Your savings account should have 3 times your survival number. So between your personal checking and personal savings, you should have 3 to 4 times your monthly expenses sitting there. Your checking, you will put money in and take money out of every month, and your savings should sit there and do nothing. That's the ideal world. The percentage saved in a month is column 4 divided by column 5. So the form will actually do this for you. But in this example, and they just used extreme numbers, column 4 is they saved $10,000 and they made 18. So they saved 59%. So that's not a normal number for most people, obviously, but usually, again, the goal is going to be about 20% of your income should be saved every single month. So then you can also track your money saved year to date. So this is important because in a given month, you may or may not save money. Again, in an ideal world, you're going to save 20% every month for the rest of your life. Save it, build up a savings account, begin investing, and you'll retire at 60, 4.5, happy and wealthy. But there are going to be months that you have something unexpected come up and you can't save as much. So keeping in mind what have you actually saved over the course of a year is kind of a long-term way to think about it. So then if you have a bad month, you can still look back and say, okay, I had a bad month. I spent $500 more than I saved, but over the course of a year, I'm still up $3 grand. So keeping a year at a glance in view kind of provides some of that hope rather than just like, okay, this is what happened this month. Cool, wipe the slate, start over. You want to keep sort of that long-term game in mind, which is also why you check your balances pretty consistently. Your cash net worth is anything that you can quickly liquidate. So that would be your cash sitting in your money market or your savings or checking account, your 401k, your mutual funds, your Roth IRAs. So those things can all be liquidated within like 2 days. So you have a meteor hits your house and you have to buy a new house. How much cash can you come up with immediately to do that? So that is liquidating all of the things in the balance column except for the home. So then your total net worth is what do you have in savings? What do you have in your retirement accounts? And how much equity do you have in your home? And then finally, tracking your giving year to date, again, kind of keeps in mind that what we have is not our own, and we should be very generous people with our lives. And part of that is tracking and being aware, like, okay, am I actually giving what I should be giving, or am I not giving enough? So keeping all of those things in mind and tracking them every single month is just going to keep that focus shifted on the actual intention behind the saving and the investing, instead of just necessarily cutting back on everything because you're looking at the long game rather than what is happening on a month-by-month basis. Any questions or thoughts on that? So I can tell you from personal experience, I gave a second for a question, but I'm going to jump in anyway. From personal experience, this has been an absolute game changer for me because I like getting things done. Like I'm a doer, and like if I have a goal, I'm going to pursue that goal with everything in me. So for me, being forced to track all of these things every month on the bottom, even though they don't fluctuate necessarily a whole lot month by month, gives intention behind, okay, do I really need to eat out, or can I actually like save some of that money and invest some of that money into kind of the long-term game? And so for me personally, this has shifted my focus to actually love saving and be stoked about like, how can I increase my savings, like have a larger safety net, so then my family's taken care of, be able to invest in some of these retirement accounts or other different type of accounts. And it's shifted my focus a lot and made it kind of like a weird game. So this is the form. You have a copy of it. I would be happy to talk you through it. Again, 3 and 5 should match. And then everything is going to get brought down month by month. And so you're tracking month over month to keep track of where your wealth is going, so that over months and years, you are going to be growing in your wealth. And then keeping those 4 building blocks in mind of having a home that's appropriately priced for what you can afford, having a savings account of about 3 months of reserves, investing in your work stuff, especially stuff that's matched, and kind of maxing that out every year, and then investing in other kind of like fun investments. Keeping all of those 4 boxes in mind, balancing all of them every month, and being intentional with where your money is going. And over time, if you're saving 20% month over month, you'll be able to retire and have the life that you're wanting financially in your retirement and be able to live on more than $10,000 in a year.
Does this say an Excel spreadsheet?
It is in an Excel spreadsheet, yes.
So what is the difference of using that Excel spreadsheet versus like the Mint app?
Sorry, using a what?
So the Mint app.
Mint, yeah. So the difference is just that bottom section. So we used the Only Money or Easy Money. Angie, what is this called? Every dollar. The Dave Ramsey
Smart
app.
dollar, every dollar, yeah.
Smart dollar, yeah. Hey, buddy, can you go, please? Thank you. Got a naked kid running in here. Love that. So the Every Dollar app is good for tracking, or the Mint or whatever. All those things are good. For me, I like having something on paper in front of me that I can file away every month and keep track of. So at the end of every month, I print it and I actually keep it in a folder so then I can look month over month and see how things are shifting and changing. The Excel spreadsheet also, if you hate paper, which is crazy to me, but some people hate paper, you can see all 12 months side by side. And then it also is going to auto tabulate or auto calculate some of those things. Like if you're saving it or giving, it's going to auto populate in January and then roll over to February with everything that you've also saved there. So it's going to continue going through, and it's just easier to see. And for me, again, it's a mindset shift of being intentional with what I'm doing with my money rather than just sort of letting it happen. So it's all about intentionality. And for me, like Mint might do it, but Every Dollar for me did not give me the intentionality behind what I was doing. If you can do those same things with any sort of other format, that's great. Any other questions?
So when you say column number 5 and number 3 need to match, basically is what you're saying is you need to do a zero-based budget. You need to like, you got this much money and you need to tell it where to go. Not just like, oh gosh, I'm gonna let it hang out here and I'm gonna, I know I got a couple extra $100, but I'm not gonna, I don't know, I'll just let it sit there. So what you're saying is when you have extra money, you need to intentionally tell it where to go. I'm gonna specifically blah, 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 pay extra on the house. I'm gonna make an extra car payment. I'm gonna, that's part of my emergency fund or my savings account. I mean, so you're saying use a zero-based budget and make those numbers. I mean, don't let money just hang out and it happen. Just don't let it, you happen to your money. Don't let money happen to you.
Yeah. So one good example personally. So I have, again, a business, real estate business. Surprise if anyone doesn't know that. So in my business, I have income come in and I have expenses that go out. So I have payroll, I have marketing, I have meals with clients, like all these different things that I have expenses. So previously what I was doing is I was letting that account build up and then I was paying myself a set amount every month and letting the business account build up. But what I realized is when I was doing that, suddenly my spending would go up every month. Like we would buy Yeti mugs with our logo on them, and which we actually just got those. But I started to become a little more free with like, oh, I have some extra money in the business account. I'm going to spend a little bit more money. Now what I've been doing the last 5 months is every month, all of the excess, I skim off the top and put it away. So it has made me personally like be more intentional with not spending extra because it's not there. So I know what my monthly expenses are. And if I start to go outside of that, I do have a little bit of a safety net, but I don't have 2 months in my business account of safety net. That's the same reason why you keep like 1 month of expenses or 1.5 months of expenses in your personal checking account. Because if you have 3 months of expenses in your personal checking account and you call it your savings account and your safety net, you're going to start to spend some of that and you're going to whittle away at it every single month. So being really intentional with this is what needs to be in here everything else is going to be taken out of my site. So then I'm not going to be tempted to spend it. So yes, it should be a zero based budget every month. And if there's excess, it should be put allocated into a savings account on column 3.
I like it.
So this is something I've been having my team do. Courtney has been very faithful at doing it. Who's on here? Do you have any feedback on what your thoughts have been on this, Courtney? Doing it a couple months.
Actually, kind of go back to, I can't remember your name, Adam, where you mentioned the Mint app. Like I was using that for a while, and it was just like, it was so annoying for me to like keep like sorting my expenses every month or like every week or whatever, however I was doing it. And then I started doing this method, and it was just so much easier for me to just do it all at once. And also, like Chase was saying, is like, it was actually really kind of like, it kind of sucks, you know, going through all your expenses, but at the end, like, it's fun to see like, okay, well, like it gives me peace of mind, like, okay, well, I like last month I overspent too much because I needed, like, things came up, but I had a savings for it. But like for me, it was really good to see like exactly where my money was going, and then like also keeping track of like my savings and my 401k, like my equity in my house, and like how all of that kind of like compounds after a while. So for me, it was super it was really good. I actually really like this method. It seems kind of clunky with the spreadsheet, but in the long run, it was way more informative than Mint. Like Mint, I was just like putting things in categories and that was it. And whereas this method gave me a better idea of like the bigger picture in the long run.
So, thank you. 2 like clarifying things I meant to talk about that I didn't. 1, I do this 1 time a month. So I know what my monthly spending should be. I keep that much in my checking account plus a little bit of a buffer because things happen and you sometimes forget about buying a new couch or something. So I keep a little bit of a buffer on top of what I normally like know I need. And then once a month, I do this on like the 3rd. So by the 3rd, I know all of my bills from last month have cleared. All my checks have come in for getting paid. So by the 3rd or the 4th, I do it 1 time. I balance it, I make it all good, and then I don't think about it again because I know I have that money set aside in my checking account that I'm not going to overspend. And if I am like buying a couch, I'll know like, okay, that's something I'm doing abnormal. I should transfer a little of extra money to make sure that that is going to balance.
Mhm.
Those are my two big takeaways. So this can be done. So you can export all of your expenses from like whatever, like we have Chase for our like main credit card that we use for everything. You can hit in the Chase website, export expenses, and it will export a full spreadsheet of all of the expenses, all of the amounts, and it will categorize them for you. So I do that, and then I hit sort. I sort, okay, food and beverage, car, pet, like whatever, and it will categorize it for me. And then I literally just tally it up and move it over. So it took like 2 hours at first. Now it probably takes me 40 minutes. Cool. Any other thoughts or feedback before we end? We're a little bit over. I'm so sorry. But thank you for your time.
Yeah, you did a good job, man.
Thank you.
Good
Who
job.
is excited about doing their budget this month?
Me, pick me.
Me too. Who's gonna do their budget tonight? I am. I'm definitely gonna do it.
It's al- It's
Josh,
really
I
late.
appreciate
man.
your honesty.
Mine's
Thank
already
you.
done.
It is kind of late, but my kids are finally going to bed, so I'm going to do mine tonight because I like doing it. So If you guys have any questions about this, I would love to help you answer questions, be an ongoing resource. And yeah, reach out if you're doing this or have questions about the form or whatever. Again, my heart is to help those around me build long-term wealth rather than just scrape by or live on almost nothing in your retirement. So if I can be a resource to you and help you achieve that, I would love to do that. Sorry, my kid just fell off a chair. So thank you guys for coming tonight. And yeah, if you have questions, hit me up anytime. I'll be doing my budget till about 9:30 tonight. So
The kids are
Thanks,
getting older.
Chase.
Thanks, Chase.
cool.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.